This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is
the one that everybody wants, me.
It's going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my iron. You're going to acknowledge me.
Hey guys, welcome to the WWE Podcast on this Sunday, December 7th, 2025, as we're going to get to the emails. We got a couple additional coming in since my early mailbag that I did on Thursday. We're back in the saddle here as it is a historic week in pro wrestling, a week that we knew was coming. It's been planned out by John Cena himself, and that is John Cena is officially retiring. No crazy stories here. This is real. John Cena is truly done. As of Saturday, December 13th, it will be his final match. It'll be his final match in Washington, D.C. for Saturday night's main event. He apparently will also be opening the show. So if you expected him to main event the show, as he should, he's not. But he is going to open the show. And his opponent will be, as we know, Gunther. Now, out of the entire roster that's available, the current roster, the realistic roster, Gunther's a perfect opponent. It's new. Gunther has still many days, hopefully ahead of him. He's a perfect foil for John Cena. You know he can bust his ass. I think their styles are going to complement each other well. And the question becomes, is John going to win or lose his last match? And that'll be something that we'll discuss later in the week for our official predictions. But when it comes to Gunther and John, I don't know who they could have chosen actively on the roster that is a better choice than Gunther. A lot of complaints. I know a lot of people want LA Knight, but LA Knight doesn't make sense. I know people are getting frustrated. This is not a chance for a title opportunity. This is a chance to just be in the main event or the open of the show with John Cena for his final match. That's what this is about. In 1 week, John Cena retires. And did you really want LA Knight to be booed? And even if LA Knight won, what did he really win again? Nothing. He didn't win anything. John Cena retires, win, lose, or draw. And LA Knight would have had to have potentially gone through some damaging chants because the fans would have really been forced to boo him. This really was a good choice, the best choice the company could have made. Would I have liked it to be Edge? Of course, who wouldn't? Yes, Edge would have been a absolute gem of a match. It would have been one that made a lot more sense, but it doesn't look like Adam Copeland's available. Now, could they still do in the off-ball, very off-ball chance, could they still do a swerve where Edge joins at the last second and it's a triple threat? Yeah, they could. I'm not predicting that to happen at this time. Unfortunately, I have held out hope that somehow they could coerce AEW executives to be able to allow Adam Copeland to compete. Doesn't look like the case. Looks like it's a straightforward Gunther, John Cena final match for his, and then calling it a career. And we'll dive much more into that in the preview and, of course, in the post show and the review show that we're going to do after Saturday night's main event. There's just a lot more to talk about. And again, you have really just seen the beginning of John Cena, because much like The Undertaker, you're going to see John Cena in a lot more documentaries and interviews moving forward. While his in-ring career has wrapped up, there's a lot more story to tell. He has 25 years of things that he's potentially been holding that he can, at his discretion, share with the fans, with stories and tips and funny and potentially questionable stories. And there's a lot of data in that brain that WWE can still monetize even if his body is done. And I believe it's 100% done. So this is not the end of John Cena on the mic or rather in documentaries. Nor I don't think you've seen the last of him in the ring for all the reasons I've talked about before, the Hall of Fame. But there's a lot more to be told with John, and we have not seen the last of him when it comes to WWE television. Matches, of course, yes. Okay, so thank you everybody for joining me here on the show. It's fun to have you here. I hope you enjoyed the show over the next, I'm guessing, 30, 40 minutes. We'll see. I'm going to go through the things that we've got going on in this week, the big items. And before we do that, I want to give a shout out to our co-host, Daniel, who is going to be covering SmackDown. If you already did hear him covering SmackDown for the next couple of weeks, as Amanda is on vacation. So Dan, who does our main event review, and whenever there's a PLE, he'll cover that on his show as well. I know you guys enjoy him. I do as well. He's been with the show for a few years now, and I hope that you guys take a listen, because I did, and I, as always, enjoyed the hell out of it. So Daniel, thank you. And guys, go check out our SmackDown review for the next week, or several weeks, as Daniel and then eventually the returning Amanda will be covering SmackDown. All right, well, let's dive in. Let's dive into SmackDown, because I know that Daniel did a great job covering SmackDown, but I got to give my twist on it. So we had, at the beginning of the show, Drew McIntyre show up, and he was confronted by Nick Aldis pretty much immediately, saying, "You're not done. We're not done with your suspension." Drew tried to fight it. And Cody shows up in the back of it, or in his passenger seat, and attacks Drew. And Drew kind of gets security to help him out, and he skids off. And then we have Cody come out and, of course, claim that he wants Drew McIntyre to be reinstated, and he accused Drew of breaking an unwritten rule by entering his bus where his wife sleeps and his children play, and he called Drew WWE's resident cockroach and demanded another fight with Drew in a ring, so we can do what everyone does with cockroaches and stomp him out. Fine. I actually enjoyed this. I did. I mean, the fans were sad when Drew couldn't appear in the arena. They were behind Drew on that. I mean, simply because you're in person and you want to see big stars. That is the biggest reason. But Cody did a nice job here. The intensity. He wasn't Mr. Pocket Watch that he usually is, coming out there so kind of just very much looking like he's going to cocktail hour. The whole deal of his whole look is not my favorite, but that was a segment to me that pushed this story where it needed to go, and intensity and bringing Drew back, which of course he was never really suspended to begin with, because he hasn't really adhered to the suspension. So I enjoyed it. Quick but effective. We have a video package air of Damian Priest, and he called Aleister Black delusional for thinking he could burn his face and not suffer any consequences. Rhea Ripley appeared next to him as a counter to Zelina and said she would be by his side, meaning Damian, after all they'd been through together. And they said they would face Black and Zelina next week and would learn why no one survives the Terror Twins. Okay. I don't know how long this is going to go, but seeing Rhea and Damian back together, fun little kind of, throwback to Judgment Day when they were fighting that whole group. Fine. I think they do have some chemistry together. There's a history there, and Damian certainly needs pretty much anything to get momentum back on his side. He has kind of fallen by the wayside. From world champion to hanging on by a thread on television, he needs Rhea, I think, more than Rhea needs him at this particular moment. So Damian is probably very happy that he's being put with Rhea at this point, and it should be a fun match. All right, let's continue. We had Dragunov take on Carmelo Hayes for the United States Championship. Dragunov got the advantage here in the early going, but obviously a lot of back and forth here, but a pretty quick match for Dragunov standards, and especially what Carmelo Hayes is capable of. But Dragunov did end up beating Carmelo Hayes in 10.5 minutes to retain the U.S. title. And it's kind of what you expect at this point, but I will say, as I said a couple weeks ago, it seems like Dragunov could be ending soon his run as U.S. champion. Doesn't feel like it's got a lot of steam left to it, despite the potential of open challenges and everything like that. And there is a nice program here going with Dragunov and Hayes, but right now it just does not feel like we have the fans truly behind Dragunov. And why is that? Not because in ring he's not incredible. He has no personality. He has nothing to connect the fans with outside of, hey, I'm great in the ring, watch me. And that's good. That's important. But more important is your connection with the fans when you're able to speak and relate to them and grab them. He hasn't done that, and WWE doesn't really give him a ton of opportunity to do that. So, all right. We have, let's continue here. We've got, oh goodness, AJ Styles, some John Cena stuff I'm not going to go over. But Alexa Bliss and Kairi Sane, fairly quick match with 8 minutes and 23 seconds of Alexa Bliss beating Kairi Sane. And the finish was having Charlotte and Asuka fight on the outside. Sane caught Bliss with a back fist, and then she attempted an insane elbow, but Alexa avoided it and landed Sister Abigail for the victory. All right. So we then had, after the match, Nia Jax and Lash Legend attacked Charlotte and Alexa from behind. Lash had a pretty good night here because she ended up leveling Bliss with a big clothesline. I think her and Nia are starting to get some good chemistry here, and they've just got a very cohesive feeling. And yes, she ended up taking some boots and everything else, but it ended up with Nia and Lash standing tall, holding up the women's tag team titles, which is exactly where they're headed. So I enjoyed this. Now, we did have Asuka save Kairi from an Annihilator, which I did not think was going to happen. And again, Lash Legend did take some bumps in this, but it didn't end up with her knocked out. I mean, she got up quickly. She recovered quickly, and both her and Nia, I got to say, feel like a team. They feel like a tag team, not just thrown together. They've got that instant chemistry. So I'm high on this team for the time being. And yes, they're going to win the tag titles, and we'll see how long they hold them, probably for several months, I would imagine. The next time that Alexa and Charlotte put up those belts against Nia and Lash Legend, they're losing them. That doesn't mean I also want to see Charlotte and Alexa go at it. That's not what I'm saying, but they are going to drop the belts. The next match, Alba Fire takes on Jade Cargill. And the match was extremely quick, with Jade beating Alba Fire in a minute and a half with Jaded. After the match, Jade celebrated with Fire while Fire recovered. And then backstage, Fraxium asked to get a chance to get their hands on DIY. And Dragunov walked up frustrated. He said he wanted to get his hands on Ciampa next week, and Aldis made the match. And Dragunov said Fraxium could have whatever was left. And Tama Tonga then confronted Dragunov as he turned around, but Solo prevented a fight. And that's when the MFTs were up next. Backstage, though, Jade ran into B-Fab, but Michin interrupted them. It's quickly devolved into Jade asking Nick Aldis for a match between them. Jade said she would get stepped on, and yeah, so matches are being made here. That's good for next week. And then we get the MFTs in the ring. We'll talk about that in a minute. But Jade, doing what Jade does, not saying much in short matches. That is effective, but it only takes you so far, and they have yet to try to break the formula. Now, I know Jade is a heel. By category, she's a heel, but she has yet to really cut a promo that makes me feel like she's a heel. Okay, she had that one line, I'm that, you know what, which, okay, good starting point. Build off it. And they haven't. And so Jade is still, despite categorically being a heel, meaning on paper she's a heel, but I have yet to feel it. She beats people. We get it. She's dominant. Yes. So are they building her? Is this a foundation being laid, I would think, for her to face, say, Charlotte for the women's championship, or Even in a non-title match, you could have Jade compete. That's a possibility too. But I'm feeling like this heel turn so far has been a bit flat for Jade. Despite the fact that it's the right move, I don't criticize the move. I've been calling for that. It just feels like so many things that WWE does in the Vince era, in the Triple H era, this needs follow-up. You can't do things and turn people and have big moments, no matter the star, including John Cena, as we saw most notably at Elimination Chamber, turn heel and not have a follow-up plan. So with Jade, same principle applies. If you want this to be effective, you need a plan. That doesn't mean you need to overthink it. You just need Jade. Get on the mic, even if it's just 2 minutes or less. Don't give us just taglines. Give us substance, something. I know she's weak on the mic. We know that. Clearly she is. She's a disaster on the mic. Otherwise, she would have been on the mic years ago. And she's been with the company multiple years now. And we have yet to have her cut one promo that you go, oh my God, wow. Has anyone reacted to Jade that way yet? I'm hopeful because now she's in the right role. I'm hopeful that this role frees her of whatever blockages in her mind and she can just be herself. So Solo is out there with his MFTs and he demanded Howdy listen closely. Now that he said since Sami Zayn is done, his family can move forward. And he told him that everything was his that was now yours will belong to Solo. Okay, that's kind of weirdly put, but you got it. He said it would take everything from him, meaning everything from Howdy, and all he had to do was believe. That was a good line. I don't know if Solo came up with it or production came up with it. A nice kind of jab at Bo Dallas, i.e. Uncle Howdy, Bray Wyatt's brother, for the previous gimmick of Believe. It's just a nice callback to that. I enjoyed that. So the lights went out in the arena as Solo and his group were leaving. And as expected, Howdy and Solo have a stare down, but his group is on the apron. Both groups, both respective sides are on the apron, ready to explode. That's when both Howdy and Solo brawl. And it ended with Nikki Cross jumping on JC Mateo's back, and she ends up getting tossed to the mat as she should have, and really like instantly too. But then you have Tala Tonga and Eric Rowan have a standoff, which is as good as it could be. And I really don't have a ton to criticize here because going into this, I was a little bit ho-hum about it. They've done a nice job. As good as you could expect this to be at this point. I would still love more character development on the side of really both sides, but particularly the Wyatt Six, who are still hinging on just using Bray's, music and attributes and things like that, and still hanging on the rim of his death. I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, just in the way that is just very much still relying heavily on reminding people of Bray instead of moving forward with who they are. It's taken them pretty far, but eventually, unless you want things to collapse, you have to find an identity for this team. So, but I enjoy it for what it is right now. In the short term, the MFTs and the Wyatt Six, it's a fun, large scale rivalry because this isn't about a tag team. This is, yes, centered at the focal point of Solo and Uncle Howdy, but it's larger and you have more people involved. That two larger groups. That is something that really can benefit everybody because everybody gets television time, And yes, it will come down eventually to Uncle Howdy and Solo because they are the two bigger stars on both teams. But you at least have in the meantime kind of the side characters get some time and minutes on television. So good stuff. All right. The Miz had a conversation with all of this backstage. He complained how he wasn't booked on Saturday night's main event. And Aldis told him not just anyone can get booked. And then Bayley walked in and asked about her match. And Miz leaves. Aldis introduced Bayley to her opponent, who is Sol Ruca. And Bayley said the main roster is a different level. And Ruca said she was ready. So, okay, good. I like this, but it's funny how she's, Aldis says not just anybody can be booked, and then he books somebody that's never been booked on a Saturday night main event ever. So funny. I don't know if anyone saw the irony in that, but all right. We then have a response to Damian Priest and Aleister Black from Aleister Black on his promo as well. And he said Priest stood by people who claimed to be his friend that lied to him. Black said he was an enemy, but to be honest about it, Zelina walked in and called Rhea a succubus who tempted him to return to his old life. And they claimed that they would guide them to the fire next week. And I liked it. So far, I mean, we have a fresh matchup here with the Terror Twins and Aleister Black with Zelina Vega. So we then had the main event here. LA Knight versus Gunther, and the last time is now final. The match went 18 minutes with Gunther, as we know, beating LA Knight. After the match, Gunther spoke to the camera and told John Cena that he would finally give up and tap out. Now, they made us believe for a moment or two that maybe LA Knight could win, and that's all you could ask for. You were asking for a quality match with some believable finish moments, and that believable false finish came to us after a BFT, and then you had Gunther put his foot on the rope. Excellent false finish. It had everyone believing just for that split second, and that's all you can ask for in an otherwise predictable but correct outcome. I have absolutely no issue here with Gunther being the final opponent, other than the fact that it's not Adam Copeland. Other than that, in the real world, this is the best possible opponent for John for the reasons I outlined at the beginning of the show. So let me know what you guys think, though, by the way. What do you think about Gunther and LA Knight and Gunther and John Cena? What would you have done differently? Who is the realistic better opponent? All right, let's get into those emails that were sent after I had posted the show on Thursday. This is, as always, starting with patrons of the show, because you guys get priority. You guys can also, if you wanted to get priority, patreon.com/WWE podcast. So let's go to WWE fan here, the Enabler. So the Enabler says, hi again, the Enabler here. I was going to stay anonymous, but then I decided that we need more women who admit they're wrestling fans. So in solidarity with Amanda, my name is Kat, and I'm the mom who bought my son tickets to SummerSlam and to John Cena's last match. So yes, we will be driving to DC on December 13th. And I did get a good chuckle listening to you read my letter about without knowing how it would end, but that's the fun of the mailbag. And it is. And it also tells you that for better or worse, I don't listen and or read the emails prior to airing the show, which is probably a sloppy production practice on my part, because I should probably screen them and probably know where I'm going so I have an answer instead of just off the cuff answering. But it also provides moments like that where I just clearly didn't pre-read anything and was doing it on the fly. So Kat, welcome. And yeah, you guys can come out now. No need to be shy. There are women wrestling fans. And you know how I know there's a lot more of them than we think? Not just because we have a few here on the show that are not too ashamed to admit they're fans, but because when you go to a wrestling show, and I don't know if Kat, if you've noticed this too, at least for me, every time I go, there are a lot more women there than you would possibly imagine. I'm not saying it's overwhelmingly women, but it's not like 10% of the population that's there is women. I would, just in my brain, I'd say it's at least like 40%. I mean, it's if not maybe 50-50 at times, because yes, you have moms who bring their kids, but they're also fans themselves. And I see just groups of girls and believe it or not, groups of middle-aged women there. It is more popular among women than women, I think, would like to admit. So you guys can be the pioneers here of bringing women wrestling fans out of the closet and be like, it's okay. It's okay. You know, maybe you need a little bit of therapy to bring yourself to a public admission, but we can get you there. All right. We've been anxiously awaiting the announcement of who his opponent will be for the past few weeks. And we knew Gunther was a strong possibility, but it's still a disappointment. Nothing against Gunther. He's a great athlete and performer, but he does really need the push, or doesn't really need the push. Plus, he just retired Goldberg, and we just watched him in a great long match against CM Punk at SummerSlam. So it's a little bit of a bummer, but there's still a week left, so a lot could change. And if this is a bait and switch where it was never actually meant to be Gunther, or whether the fans complain so much they change the story like they did with Cody, Rock, and Roman. So here's what I'm going to tell you, Kat. I'm going to tell you to keep the bar low so that if something does change, it will be that much sweeter. If you're looking for me to say, do I think something will change? My guess is no. My guess is no, that it doesn't change. And here's the strongest evidence for it. Two things. One, they went through that whole tournament. They went through weeks and weeks of a tournament. Spent a lot of television time on it. If they were going to do a bait and switch, well, then what was the point of all of the tournament? I think it would undermine some of the trust that's left, whatever's left, between the fans and WWE. Because if you see a tournament from now on, you're going to go, oh, well, does it really matter because they could do a bait and switch at the end? And again, this isn't for a championship or anything. I understand that. But that's argument one. The other strong argument for this not being changed, sadly, is the placement of John Cena's match at Saturday night's main event. It's opening the show. I don't think they're going to open the show with a bait and switch of having it be Cody, Rock, or Roman, or even Edge facing John Cena, and it's not really Gunther. I don't think they're going to do that. Again, the placement of a match will tell you a lot about the potential finish of that match. So that's a strong argument. And also, number three, I know you guys are a bit disappointed in it, but Gunther's like a good opponent for him. I know that you're going and you paid premium ticket prices to get there, and God bless you. But like Gunther, logically, for what the roster is and what we can realistically pull from the roster, is a logical, solidly logical choice for John. I mean, I'm not going to rehash all the reasons I talked about at the beginning of the show, but I stand by it. You know, he is a guy that, yes, he retired Goldberg and he had a great match against Punk at SummerSlam. And the problem is also, too, he's also needing a little bit of rebuilding. Don't forget, he tapped out to Jey Uso at WrestleMania on the main event of night one. Don't forget that. Okay? I didn't. That hit Gunther in a big way. So this could also continue to help repair that. And Gunther's no pushover. Now, I know that a lot of people want a bigger star. I do too. But we're living, unfortunately, in reality, and we can't curate this reality and pick and choose what we want. Me, you know, it would be Edge. It would have been Edge from day one. For you, it seems like it would have been Rock, Roman, or Cody. And those are still very, very much outliers, but I guess in the universe of possibility, it could still happen. But circling back to my initial statement, keep your expectations low on this, especially with kids. That's what I would do. I would just keep it low so that if something happens, oh my God, great. But if not, then it's not a disappointment. It's just, oh, well, we're getting what was advertised. So honestly, just being here for the first ever real match and feeling the energy from the crowd will be the real highlight. My son is so excited, it doesn't even matter. Plus, we haven't even started thinking about what the other matches might be on the rest of the card for Saturday night's main event. I'm hoping Drew will show up because he's my favorite wrestler. Plus, it will be fun to see him kick Cody's ass in person if that's where the story's going. It should be a blast no matter what. And I will definitely send a reaction or update for the mailbag after. Thanks again, Kat. Well, thank you, Kat. I do appreciate that. If you have any kind of in-person reaction, I would love to hear it. Doesn't need to be an essay. Okay. No need to over exert yourself writing notes during the show. I know I've had people do that in the past, and it takes away from like being in the moment. Like be in the moment, live the show. Don't worry about, this show. Like anything you can extract just from memory will be fine. Just be in the moment there. So, then you can enjoy the show with your son. So, I'm trying to look at the rest of the card. Let's take a look here. Saturday night's main event. So obviously we have John Cena and Gunther, but we also have the WWE champion Cody Rhodes take on the NXT champion of Obafemi. Do I expect Drew to come in there? Hell yeah. So you may get your wish. And Bayley versus Sol Ruca. So far, those are the three. I would expect one more thrown in there, unless each of these matches is going to be 30, 40 minutes long, which I don't think. So I would think one more might be squeezed in. All right. Let's see. Let's talk to James, another patron. He says, I last wrote in before the Raw in Glasgow before Mania. I've been listening every week, but life and turning 40 meant I've not been able to write in as often as I'd like. Oh boy. You're in the 40 club, my friend. Welcome. I'm actually about to graduate into 41. So it was going to be my first year anniversary of turning 40 this year. So congrats. Over the last 9 months, I feel more disconnected than ever from WWE. We've got lazy, half-written stories with no follow-up, poor choices of champions, disappointing endings to major PLEs, and Jey Uso's annoying mid-match rerun of his entrance. I used to look forward to coming home from work to watch Raw, but this year I've been watching it 2 or 3 days later and skipping most of the matches to the end. I really hope in 2026 creative can finish storylines and make wrestling what it once was, because they're turning loyal fans away in their numbers. If I was to rate the WWE this year so far, I'd give it a C-, but could easily be a D. James from Glasgow. Thank you, James. I've said this in my previous shows over the last week or two, which have gotten a lot of pushback, as expected, with the whole dog thing and CM Punk. But more importantly about just the wrestling stuff, I have somewhat echoed this, and I shouldn't admit that as a podcast host that, assumingly loves wrestling. But I have kind of echoed this, James. I would agree. There have been times, I have to be completely honest with you guys, that if I didn't have this podcast, I probably wouldn't have watched wrestling there's weeks and months of it. I mean, because partly it's, my life is just different now, and I'm not 20 and have nothing going on other than just me, right? But also because the product is substandard. The storytelling, as you said, the eye-rolling, embarrassing moments, the Jey Uso, and he's not the sole reason, but he is a perfect embodiment of some of the issues of the company. And we were also hopeful when Vince left, and how many people wanted Vince gone and all the rest. And now you have Triple H and company there, who I don't think that, I will say this, it doesn't look like they love pro wrestling. They love just entertainment, and they love making money. They don't love pro wrestling. I know that seems a bit counterintuitive, but they're just an entertainment company that does pro wrestling on the side. That's what it feels like from the top down. Even in the matches, it feels like everyone's wrestling the same matches at times. Like everyone feels like they're doing the same moves. There's no selling anymore. There's registering, meaning you'll register that someone, quote unquote, hit you, but you don't sell it like you're hurt. And then after the bell rings and match is over, it's like you hit the reset button, everything's fine. There's no selling. Everything's too quick. The matches are generally too fast. The promos feel very much structured. The matches feel more like spots than a competition. The business is exposing itself from the inside and using that to try to create money, a la the Unreal documentary series. It's all stuff like that. When you compile it on top of each other, I think in addition to what you said, it's just pushing people like you and I who have been watching. I've been watching since 97. I'm not sure how long you've been watching, but it's not a competition. I'm just saying, it sounds like you're a long-term fan. It's pushing people like us away. It's making us like, I don't want to, but what is this? It's certainly not the pro wrestling we grew up on. And yes, the people who watched the older folks, say I was 40. If you took us back in a time machine to the Attitude Era and we watched that wrestling and we grew up on the 70s wrestling and 80s wrestling, we'd be like, what is this? Blah, blah, blah. But that experience, the 90s experienced the most explosive growth in pro wrestling history because it still understood the fundamentals. Yes, it changed and evolved into more entertainment and outlandish television, but it also understood and respected what the business was, which was making it feel real as best you could. When the match started, you were locked in. The characters, the kind of wild west feelings of the promos, obviously the class of stars we had, for God's sakes, Triple H, Kane, Big Show, Taker, Austin, Rock, go down the list. I mean, all stars, legends in our business that all were there at the same time. So yes, every generation has its version of pro wrestling, but there's been no generation so far up until this point that has cannibalized itself to try to help itself, and not even knowing that they're cannibalizing themselves by just throwing caution to the wind with pulling back the curtain. I don't think they really even understand the damage that truly does. They don't understand, and they're looking at it through the eyes of just money and making, people will want to see this. Well, okay, yeah, people would, and I wouldn't put anything past the company to create a documentary on anymore. I mean, that's as far as it goes. I mean, once you show the people the backstage and how Gorilla works and the production meetings, the writing team, where else you go? Other than having a picture-in-picture of Triple H and Gorilla during Raw, where he's giving directions and telling the cameras where to go, and you can hear him directing the show while you're watching the show. That's literally the only step left. But once you go that far, where else do you go other than just, like I said, exposing every second of the show during the show? And I wouldn't be surprised if at some point there's a feed that does that. But again, my point is that there's no sanctity of pro wrestling anymore. Kayfabe, they could give a damn less about. They are all about making sure that they maximize profits. I mean, for the love of God, look at what they put on the canvas. Look who was able to pay WWE enough money on SmackDown to advertise on the canvas of SmackDown, on the ring. Riyadh season. Riyadh. And yes, WrestleMania is coming there. Excuse me. Next year, we know that. And they might pull out all the stops to get, say, Stone Cold Steve Austin there next year, despite the fact that he's, obviously aging every year more and more. But I wouldn't be surprised if they were able to pull Austin in there. I mean, if you look at the history of Riyadh events, they even pulled Shawn Michaels out of retirement, paid him enough cash to be there. It was a disaster of a match, but they did it. They've had Brock Lesnar there. They've had Goldberg there. They had the infamous Titus World slide. That is probably the best moment of the entire Riyadh season for me. So they are using all means necessary. There's no sanctity or respect for pro wrestling itself anymore from TKO. They don't give a damn. They'll expose the business as much as they need to maximize as many profits as they can. And my point about that is it may help them in the short term, but the long term is where I think they're going to feel it. because you can't create, this is not a sustainable model. You cannot continue to expose the business at the same time you're telling people to believe what we're doing. That can't work forever. You can't do that sustainably for a long period of time, because as you need to create new stars, and that is the lifeblood of the business and will forever be, the only way that you have stars be successful is to have them connect with the audience. And if the audience isn't connecting with them because you're reminding them every 3 seconds that what they're watching isn't real, and the production feels more produced, and things feel more rehearsed, and things feel more like spots than matches and competitions, they're going to have the fans connect less and get pushed away more and more and more, like you and I, James. I don't think I was going to go into a big diatribe about this, but it's a larger issue that you opened the can of worms on for me. So I could go on and on about so many different aspects of this, just general high level stuff with pro wrestling that I have big issues with. And you guys hear me talk and complain and critique wrestling on a weekly basis. Those are more symptomatic of these larger issues I'm speaking of, because y'all know I love to complain, but I do more on a micro basis about a particular match, a particular spot. Now, as you zoom out, those individual issues I have are symptomatic of these larger issues. And it's something, again, I could go on for hours on. All right, one more email, one voicemail, and we'll call it a night. All right, this is Steve from West Yorkshire. He says, was suggested to give you a listen last summer on the run up to SummerSlam, and a regular listen since. Oh, cool. Well, thanks, Steve. Whoever suggested you to listen, I thank them as well. Question, what's your take on SmackDown at the moment? While the stories progress nicely, not many of the stars on there are particularly very interesting. Solo and the MFTs just feel flat, and the Wyatts feel like a pop and not much to get behind. Likewise, the Jade and her challenges outside of Tiffany feel like it's to get them on TV, but nobody we're invested in. So, to touch on that, I think that's a perfect question given my previous explanation. Some large issues here, and what could I apply to this question? Well, I'd apply the fact that there's very little character development for MFTs. Not so much Solo, who's been involved with a lot in the last several years. But if you want Tala Tonga, Tonga Loa, JC Mateo, you want all of them to have some kind of connection with the crowd. You can't just throw face paint on them and expect the crowd to go ooh and ah. They may work for a flash in the pan of the fans go, oh, okay, ooh, we got something here. But then it's going to go, well, wait, what? Do I care if they win or lose? And if I do, why? Basic questions. Same with the Wyatts. Just covered this as well. The Jade as well. It's like this email was meant to be, Steve, because that's exactly the points I hit on over the last 40 minutes. Jade is in the same boat that the Wyatts are, in the sense that they have very little character development. And I understand the company's trying to hide the weaknesses of the stars and maximize their strengths. I get that. But you know what you have to do at some point? You have to find out if that talent can sink or swim. When you've given them enough time, so you feel sufficiently, and if they've been showing that they're putting in the effort as well and it's just not working, then maybe you just need to part ways. I'm not saying you need to fire them, but I'm saying that you need to just say, you know what? Here's what you're going to do, guys. Here's what you're going to do, Wyatts. I'm giving you guys 15 minutes on the mic. In the ring, you guys all just cut promos. Here's bullet points of where we're going so you have some kind of direction. Go. Jade, you got 5 minutes on the mic this week. Go. See what they do. See what they come up with. If they crash and burn, they crash and burn. But you need to know what you have if you really want to take a chance and see what you've got. I know they'll never do that. That's not the model that they're not going to blow up the whole model or risk embarrassing themselves. But you know what they're doing? They're embarrassing themselves in a different way, because you have characters that the fans don't care about because they haven't given them an opportunity to really see what they got. All right. Second, Cody and Drew are the biggest stars on SmackDown alongside Randy when they use him. And I look forward to this feud, but but I feel it's disappointing. The suspension thing with Drew has hurt the feud, and he's never felt like a threat to win, as he should as SmackDown's top heel. Compared to the Drew we got for the Punk feud, I feel like he hasn't been able to sink his teeth into this feud. Also disappointed we didn't get a Drew Cena face-off, but guess Cena can't face everybody. Yeah, he can't. Cena, if you've heard his interviews even the last week, he said he tried and proposed that he was going to do 200 plus dates this year. WWE said they only needed him for 36 or whatever it was. So we probably would have gotten that moment, but it was WWE's call to only give him 36 dates throughout the year. Probably a smart move, though. Maybe I would have added another 10 or 20 because you would have been able to sell a bunch more tickets. But you're also risking injuring a 50-year-old man who almost certainly would have been injured and overexposing him for the year. So that is, that's the drawback. But, yeah, I mean, Drew right now is, I think, given SmackDown, I mean, SmackDown heated things up. He continues to show up even though he's suspended. And I think Drew will have a big say come Saturday night's main event. And then Cody and Drew will have a blow off, potentially at the Rumble. But if you want Drew and Cody in the Rumble, or Cody wouldn't be, but Drew would be, you want them to have a blow off potentially before Rumble. And there's also one more Saturday night main event, if I'm not mistaken, in Montreal, I think. So they could go there as well. And then the Rumble would be freed up for Drew to enter, even though Roman's overwhelmingly favored to win. And you could have Cody also, maybe not participate in the Rumble, but you could have him against Drew, I guess, with Drew doing double duty. That's been done before. Brock Lesnar's done that before. Just because they're in a championship match doesn't mean they can't enter the Rumble. So maybe they go that road. But thanks, Steve. Thank you so much. Oh, wait a minute. I have one more. Wait a minute. We got one more. One more email. And then we'll get to DJ's voicemail. So this is from James. He says, first, I want to say I've been a listener for only about a year, but I love your stuff. Your other pod is excellent too. Well, thank you. It's called The War on Truth, if anybody wants to listen. Careful, it's not about wrestling. I must say your recent dog takes in the last week have made me laugh my ass off. I have 2 kids and a dog, and they just aren't the same. Not a lot of things are more annoying in this world than dog moms and dog dads. In terms of wrestling, I have a few comments and questions. Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed that. Not a lot of people did. And I knew I would get some pushback, but I didn't say what I said to get pushback. It's truly how I feel. So if you want more of an in-depth, if you guys are, not you, James, but if anybody who's wondering, what are you talking about, dog stuff? Go back to what I commented a couple shows ago about CM Punk's dog dying. I'm surprised we didn't get a 10-bell salute this week on SmackDown. Okay, I know War Games got terrible reviews by us adults, but I can't say I disagree. However, my 10-year-old son absolutely loved it and was on the edge of his seat the whole night. Maybe sometimes we need to take a step back and realize these shows are for the young ones too. Not giving Triple H a pass for poor writing, but it seems the kids loved it. Well, that's good. Here's the thing. Kids and adults view things very differently. And the expectations of adults and kids are wildly different. Kids are a lot more simplistic and usually easier to please when it comes to, well, pro wrestling. I don't know about everything in life, but they view the world differently. However, I will say, though, that the things that we saw at War Games, while they were very spot-driven, I, as a kid, and I'm guessing you, James, too, did not grow up in this kind of wrestling. We saw wrestling that still respected what pro wrestling was at its core, right? And I wasn't sitting there confused, right? I wasn't sitting there at 10 years old and going, huh? I don't understand. You got it. And we were fans for life, despite the fact that it wasn't built for us. Our core demographic, when I was 10, although I started watching when I was 12, but close enough. They had just started the Attitude Era, so I was on the very bottom fringe of the WWE's target market. we still were able to understand and gravitate to promos and pro wrestling, even at its basic level without all these spots. We still got it. Today's wrestling is obviously very much more spot driven. It has less substance, I think, than it ever did. It feels more choreographed than ever. And I don't know if that's the purpose of them now transforming to this style to make sure kids get it and are entertained. I'm glad your son did. That's great. But I don't know if the way that it came off was negative by adults because it was made for the kids. Because remember, the consumer, even if you say you're a parent that hates wrestling, but you go to a wrestling event for your kid, or you buy them wrestling merch because they like wrestling, or you'll occasionally sit and watch with them because they like you to watch with them, but you truly don't like wrestling. I'm not saying you, James, but pretend that's you. You're not the consumer. Your son is, but you are the person who's still forking up the cash. Like, you're the bank account for the consumer, which is your son. So you still need to approve of what your son is watching and maybe even understand it and get into it, ideally. I don't know where I'm going with this, but my point is that perhaps it's being reviewed negatively by adults simply because it was just poorly written. And it felt very much structured and not taken seriously. You don't want adults to feel that way, because maybe the adults will then pull their kids back and try to get them to something else. You don't want parents to hate it and kids to love it. Ideally, you want your target market, which I don't even know what that is anymore for WWE, but you want both to love it so that both can enjoy it together and both spend their time and money watching, buying, etc. So, okay. Vicaire and Cargill's title runs so far have been a complete joke. Leave it to WWE to ruin their championship by limiting Vicaire to 20-second promos and dark matches. She's a rock star, and they're blowing it. Cargill's a complete disaster. Why would they trot her out to embarrass a solid wrestler like Alba Fire? We thought she might work as a heel, but we're wrong. She's an embarrassment. She's limited to 90-second matches because, let's be honest, that's all she's got. I mean, I kind of went over this with Jade. I actually don't mind the squash matches so much as I do the fact that they haven't let her cut any promos yet outside of the one line that she delivered. It is embarrassing. It's embarrassing just for the company, who doesn't have the trust in their talent to go out there and do what they do. And now Cargill may very well not be able to do it. Maybe they've tried in the back and they've maybe seen that she's just horrible and they don't want to embarrass the company. Maybe that's more likely what it is, because if they had something in Jade, they would have released it by now. It's been a couple of years. But yeah, Stephanie Vicaire, another talent that is very good in the ring, has a great presence, but they haven't let her do anything on the mic at all. There's so many examples like this. There are so few talent that they allow on the mic consistently. They allow Drew, they allow Roman every time he's there. They allow Cody, who's very good. The big stars, Solo Sikoa got a nice segment this week. But there's very few they allow more than just a few words before you know they're going to get interrupted. That shows a lack of trust or a lack of development or both. And it's a problem. It's a macro problem. Because you cannot connect these talent with the audience if you don't allow them to speak. Period. Lastly, let's stop with dragging things along. Call up Obafemi, Ricky Saints, Sol Ruka, Kendall Ray, and Javon Evans. Let the young ones come in and turn things around, and please let Bron Breakker win on January 5th. Mix things up. Love your show. Look forward to it. It's true. It's damn true. Thank you, JW. Appreciate it. All right, let's get to that Joe Hendry report, and we'll close things out, folks.
This is DJ Kuzmo back at it again on your Mailbag Show. Record you live on a Wednesday morning, and you know what time it is. It's time to...
his name and he appears. I believe in Joe Hendry. I believe in Joe Hendry.
That's right, folks. Joe Hendry is his name, as I take it to my 73rd episode of the Georgia Report. And like always, coming to you live from an undisclosed location. Now let me take it to what took place last week on an episode of TNA Pro Wrestling as I continue the NXT versus TNA collaboration with this very interesting storyline development of Robert Stone and his NXT outsiders invading TNA. However, we did not get a continuation of that storyline because last week was Thanksgiving, so TNA had a Thanksgiving special. And on this Thanksgiving special, TNA had a couple of pre-taped segments. And one of those pre-taped segments was a concert featuring my guy, Joe Hendry, and Jeff Hardy. This taped segment took place from July of this year when TNA was in Kingston, Rhode Island. So we had Joe Hendry and Jeff Hardy in concert. They were performing a couple of their songs, but then all of a sudden, we get the appearance of the Nemeth brothers as they come to interrupt, which of course is Ryan Nemeth and Nick Nemeth. We then see Joe Hendry and Jeff Hardy beat down on the Nemeth brothers to kick them out of the ring. But now we fast forward to TNA as now we are getting ready for a very interesting thing that is happening this coming Friday, and that is TNA's Final Resolution, and it will be happening live from El Paso, Texas. We do have a couple of matches on the card, 9 matches to be specific, but I want to focus on some matchups that are in the NXT versus TNA realm. And here are the 3 matches that are in the NXT versus TNA collaboration. The first match is Steve Maclin of TNA versus Stax, aka Channing Lorenzo of NXT. Then the other matchup we have is the Hardy Boys of Matt Hardy and Jeff Hardy versus the NXT tag team called High Rise of Tyson and Tyreek. And then we have the last NXT and TNA matchup, and that is of Mike Santana of TNA, the former TNA World Champion, versus Charlie Dempsey of NXT. And like I said, it is happening this coming Friday, live from El Paso, Texas, and this TNA event is called TNA Final Resolution. I guess you could say this is the final event in TNA before we cross over into 2026. Now back to Joe Hendry. Recently, Joe Hendry put out a short video on his socials as he made a big announcement that he is finally in WWE Supercard. That's right, the digital collectible card game. Joe Hendry is officially a special edition digital collectible card, and you can get this whether on Android or on Apple. Just download and get the official Joe Hendry special edition collectible card. And maybe, just maybe, we might see Joe Hendry in the next 2K game when we get to WWE 2K26, and possibly Joe Hendry will be in that game. But always remember this, folks, if you continue to say his name, he might just randomly appear. And he appeared last night at NXT. We get an appearance of Joe Hendry as he was included in an 8-man tag team match of Javon Evans, Joe Hendry, Leon Slater, and Miles Bourne as they went up against Dark State. But prior to the show, I want to mention a couple of things. The first thing I want to mention is that in regards to TNA, as now they have a TV deal. It was reported by Fightful Select and a couple of other sources that TNA and AMC Networks have announced a multi-year partnership that will begin next year in January of 2026. And that is to have TNA with their weekly Thursday night shows be airing live on both AMC's cable channel and AMC Plus, the streaming service. And this will be happening on 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. every single Thursday night starting on January 15th, 2026. I gotta say, this is a huge deal for TNA. At first, I thought that TNA might be coming on Peacock because since they're partnering with WWE, but now with TNA and AMC together, we're now getting live shows starting next year in January for TNA, because TNA has always been airing, their pre-tape shows, and they've been taping stuff in advance. But as of next year, with this TV deal with AMC, a classic cable channel network, they will be having live shows every single Thursday starting from January 15th. I don't have AMC Plus. I might want to pay the subscription for AMC Plus. And there's a whole lot of other wrestling shows out there. It's going to be jam-packed every single week with Monday Night Raw, NXT, Dynamite with AEW on Wednesday. Now we have TNA Thursdays on AMC, and of course Friday Night SmackDown, and a whole host of other stuff that happens on the weekends with the PLEs and the pay-per-views. I don't know if I want to add that to my plethora of streaming services, but hey, this seems like a big deal with TNA finally getting an exclusive TV deal and partnership with AMC. The other thing I want to mention is that Joe Hendry is now officially added to WWE.com's roster page. As you can look in the J section, he is alongside Joe Gacy of the Y6, Joe Tessitore, and the living legend himself, John Cena. So Joe Hendry is now on WWE's roster page. You can just go to WWE.com, go to the roster page, and you'll see Joe Hendry's smiling face right next to the likes of, like I said, Joe Gacy, Joe Tessitore, and John Cena. Now we get a pre-video segment, Thea Hale and Joe Hendry, prior to Thea Hale's match against Ariana Grace. Thea Hale says that, oh, Ariana Grace and Channing Stack Lorenzo think that they are the better mixed tag team. However, Thea Hale says, I believe that I'm going to kick Ariana Grace's ass in the ring tonight as we get ready for their one-on-one matchup of Thea Hale versus Ariana Grace. And speaking of that match, let's get to the matchup of Thea Hale versus Ariana Grace. This match lasted 2 minutes and 46 seconds as Joe Hendry was supporting Thea Hale and Stacks Channing Lorenzo was supporting Ariana Grace. Let me just give you some context here. They're actually in a relationship in real life. Ariana Grace and Channing Lorenzo Stacks. They are together. Anyway, as we fast forward to the course of this match, after when Thea Hale delivered an explosive suplex to Ariana Grace, followed by a kick to Grace's jaw, we then see Thea going to the ropes. But then she gets tripped up by Stacks. Then we see Stacks and Thea Hale have a back and forth as she was getting distracted by Lorenzo Stacks. Then, of course, here comes Joe Hendry as he's at ringside supporting Thea Hale. He delivers a standing ovation chokeslam to Stacks on the ringside apron. But from behind, Ariana Grace comes and tries to deliver a potential roll-up finisher to Thea Hale, but Thea Hale kicks out at 2. Thea Hale then goes for the Kimura lock on Ariana Grace, forcing her to tap out Thea Hale with the submission victory against Ariana Grace, as this seems to be a continuing of these two mixed tag teams of Joe Hendry and Thea Hale alongside the likes of their opponents in Channing Lorenzo Stacks and Ariana Grace. Now we fast forward to the 8-man tag team match main event of Joe Hendry, Javon Evans, Leon Slater of TNA, who is the current X Division champion, and Miles Bourne as they took on all 4 members of Dark State, which are Osiris Griffin, Dion Lennox, Saquon Sugars, and Cutter James. This match lasted 14 minutes and 48 seconds. But here's a very interesting stipulation. If the babyface team were to win, the winning man would get his chance of choosing when he wants to enter the Men's Iron Survivor Challenge. Whereas if Dark State were to get the victory, Dion Lennox, who is the one representative of Dark State, will get the chance to choose at what spot he will be in the Iron Survivor Challenge. As we fast forward to the course of this main event match, with Dion Lennox and Joe Hendry brawling at ringside, we then see Javon Evans and Osiris Griffin in the ring one-on-one. Leon Slater goes for a quick tag to Javon before Javon delivers a Pele kick to Osiris Griffin. After when Javon delivers the Pele kick to Osiris Griffin, Leon Slater was about to deliver a Swanton bomb on Osiris Griffin, but Miles Bourne tags himself in, and they both look at each other saying, what the F? Anyway, Leon delivers the Swanton to Griffin, followed by Miles Bourne delivering his born-again finisher to Osiris Griffin, and 1, 2, 3. The 4-man tag team of Joe Hendry, Miles Bourne, Leon Slater, and Javon Evans gets the victory in this main event match. And with this victory, Miles Bourne, since he was the one to get the pinfall victory, he will now get the opportunity to choose where he wants to appear during the course of this Men's Iron Survivor Challenge match, which, by the way, is happening this Saturday as part of NXT Deadline, Saturday, December 6th, live from San Antonio, Texas. And I just want to make one quick prediction about this Men's Iron Survivor Challenge match. I predict that Javon Evans will get the victory because this has been such a tremendous year for Javon Evans, having matches against Gunther, having matches against Sami Zayn, and every part of this year has been a great year for Javon Evans in NXT. And with this potential victory for Javon Evans for the Men's Iron Survivor Challenge match, he will get that NXT Championship opportunity next year against whoever the NXT Champion will be, whether it's Obafemi or Ricky Saints. But back to Joe Hendry. If you always remember this, folks, if you continue to say his name, he might just randomly appear. Always remember to believe, say his name, always remember the words that Joe Hendry says anytime, any place, at any show, and most importantly, always remember to do this.
Wave your hands from side to side and say, oh, I believe in Joe Hendry. Joe Hendry is so prestigious.
Once again, this is your guy, DJ Kuzmo. Have a blessed week. Be kind to one another. Stay safe, my friends. Believe and peace.
DJ, thank you as always, my friend, for your contributions and your detailed review and what Joe Hendry is doing out of these with WWE on the main, well, not yet, on NXT, inevitably the main roster, and Ricky Starks and what the TNA Championship situation is looking like. And appreciate it, my friend. I hope you're doing well. I hope that things are treating you well down there in the city. Joe Hendry, as we all know, is an inch away from being on the main roster full time. I would think that it's going to be this year's Royal Rumble leading into WrestleMania. I said that last year. I don't know if I'll be burned again this year, but this time it seems like it's a lot closer and materializing as he's no longer with TNA, with NXT, and now things are really rolling. So I'm looking forward to, as he makes his debut fully on the main roster, your take on it and everything else. But continue to tell us about TNA. You know, I had an emailer talk to me about TNA, and has really started to convince me to potentially start to look at TNA in a different light, as not just this second-rate company. And it's not competition to WWE. We all know that, but they offer a different product, and it's much more wrestling-based, much more just, you know, less entertainment, less spots, less flashy, more on the mat wrestling. I love that. And I may start to see what they have to offer as well. So, DJ, thank you for your weekly contributions. I know that I had a weird schedule this week, but I'll be back on Tuesday, everybody, with my Raw review. And then Wednesday or Thursday, I'll be in with my official Saturday Night Main Event review. And if you want to check out SmackDown, the full review of SmackDown, it of course is done this week by Daniel, who does the NXT main, or not NXT, but the main event shows, the WWE main event shows that you hear on a weekly basis. Great review. Very easy to listen to, smart, and appreciate his contributions, because he's, as I said, he's been doing this for a few years now. And I do appreciate his assistance with Amanda out. So check out Daniel's SmackDown review that was published earlier today. So everybody, thanks so much. If you want to go ad-free, patreon.com/WWE podcast. You can also go to Apple. You can go to Spotify, anywhere that podcasts are available. The ad-free feed is there too. So thanks, everybody. Thanks for sticking with me, and we'll talk next time.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.